Hey y'all, so today I'm going to be doing my October wrap-up and November TBR. So October was a month, and I didn't make videos for a large chunk of the month, and if you thought that was because I was getting some actual reading done, you'd be wrong. I did very little reading in the month of October, and what I did do was at the very beginning of the month. I haven't picked up a book in 2 to 3 weeks. I haven't even thought about picking up a book in 2 to 3 weeks. I've just been in this insane reading slump where not only am I not reading, but I'm not even thinking about reading, and it is really weird. However, I'm kind of starting to pull myself out of that because I'm starting to kind of want to read a little bit. So since it is the end of the month, I figured I should go ahead and make my wrap up and talk about what I might possibly read in the month of November. So in the month of October, I had this whole plan where I was going to read a bunch of really creepy books, and there was one that I was really excited about, and so that was the one that I got to first, and that was Witches Volume 1 by Scott Snyder. This is the first volume in a horror comic series, and in this volume, a family moves to this secluded town, and as to be expected from a horror series, some creepy and disturbing things begin to happen. It is not a stretch in the slightest for me to say that this is by far my favorite comic that I have ever read. I was incredibly impressed both by the artwork and the story. I thought that the story was really creative and the artwork is absolutely stunning. Just as an example, here's one of the full page images. It's just, the artwork is so beautiful and the coloration is so great. The artwork in here is definitely my favorite artwork in any graphic medium that I have read. Overall, this was just really great, and even though we are kind of past Halloween, if you are still in that creepy, spooky reading mood, I would definitely recommend that you check this out because it was really great. And I ended up giving it 9.5 stars out of 10. The next thing that I read in the month of October was Through the Woods by Emily Carroll, which is a graphic novel that is comprised of 5 short stories. All 5 of the stories in here are creepy or disturbing in some form or fashion, which made it really ideal for Halloween, October reading. However, I was just very disappointed in this collection of short graphic novels. I gave Through the Woods 4.5 stars out of 10, which is 3 out of 5 on Goodreads. However, I would definitely say that the stories themselves warrant more like 2 stars out of 5 versus the 3 stars out of 5. I bumped it up a star mostly because of the really beautiful artwork. Overall, I just really wasn't impressed with the stories in here, specifically the endings to those stories. I wrote about this in detail on Goodreads, so I will leave a link down in the description to where I talked about that. But essentially, I felt like she was trying to make some really surprising and shocking endings that were interesting and left you kind of asking some questions and intrigued. But what I felt she ended up with were endings where you were just confused and it wasn't really as dynamic as I think that she intended it to be. So instead of the endings being surprising and intriguing, I felt like they were more unexpected, but in the weird, nonsensical way. And on top of that, at least one of these stories felt very similar to one that I've read before, and so they weren't exactly the most innovative things in the world either. So overall, I was just pretty disappointed with this. And like I said, I gave it 4.5 stars out of 10, which translates to 3 out of 5 on Goodreads. And then the last thing that I read in October, which I'm still not sure I'm going to count toward my rankings for the year or for my Goodreads goal for the year, is The Amazing Book Is Not on Fire by Dan Howell and Phil Lester. Dan and Phil are 2 of my absolute favorite YouTubers. In fact, I usually tend to say that Dan is my favorite YouTuber, and I was just so excited about this book. This is the only YouTuber book that I've actually been excited about, and I pre-ordered it and I loved it. I felt like they just did a really great job of capturing the essence of Dan and Phil in this book, and I just really loved it. I mean, I guess I'm gonna give it 10 out of 10 stars. I really didn't think about giving it a rating because it doesn't seem like one of those books that you really need to give a rating, but I loved it. I love Dan and Phil. I love the book. It's great. So those were the 3 things that I read in the month of October, and that means that not only did I not complete my book stack challenge, but I also didn't complete my TBR jar challenge. However, because I haven't been reading at all over the past 2 to 3 weeks, I'm not going to be attempting either of these challenges in November. Because for me, reading challenges are really great when I am in the mood to read a lot and when I'm really productive with my reading, but in times like right now when I'm not really reading and I'm in a bit of a reading slump, reading challenges can feel like a burden and like something that is more like a chore, and I really don't want reading to feel like that right now because that will just put me further and further into a reading slump. And it's not that I dislike being in a reading slump. If I don't feel like reading, I don't feel like reading, but I'm kind of starting to feel like reading again, and I don't want to bog that down with forcing myself to read specific books. So that being said, right now for the month of November, I'm just gonna read whatever I feel like reading. Right now, I'm kind of in the mood for something a bit darker, not necessarily something like still horror or creepy, but just something with a little bit darker of a tone. And I haven't settled on a book yet, but I will go ahead and show you a few of the books that I'm considering reading. Like I said, this isn't like an official TBR. These are just ones that are kind of floating around in my head right now as ones that I might want to move on to. One that I might move on to is The Ask and the Answer by Patrick Ness, which is the second book in the Chaos Walking trilogy. I read book one, The Knife of Never Letting Go, back in August and September, and I really enjoyed it, so I could definitely see myself moving on to The Ask and the Answer pretty soon. Another that I might pick up is The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon. I'm kind of in the mood for this. I might finish my reread of the Bone season before I move on to this, but I read the Bone season this time last year, and I guess that's kind of why I'm sort of in the mood for this right now. Another sequel that I kind of want to move on to is Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray. This one came out in August, and I still haven't read it even though I read The Diviners last year and loved it. So part of me really wants to continue on to this because it is a darker, creepier read. So I might do that. Another recent release that I've kind of been wanting to pick up lately is Illuminate by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. This was one of my most anticipated releases this year, and I've had it for like 2 weeks, and I kind of want to pick it up because it does seem to have a darker tone to it. So I don't know. It seems like I'm just wanting to read a bunch of big books, but I know I don't have time for that. And then there are a couple comics that I've been considering getting to, the first of which is Sandman Volume 1, Preludes and Nocturnes by Neil Gaiman. I have a feeling that this is definitely going to fit into the darker mood that I'm in. However, it's also the first comic in a very long comic series that I don't own, so I might hold off on this until I'm ready to purchase more volumes. But this one's definitely up there as far as my interest level. And I kind of also want to move on to the third volume of Saga because I haven't picked up a volume in about a month, and I was really enjoying this series, so I might end up doing that in the month of November as well. I've also been thinking about getting Carry On by Rainbow Rowell and reading that because I've been hearing a lot of really great reviews about it, and it definitely seems like something I'm kind of in the mood for right now. So yeah, I by no means intend to read all of those books this month, but those are just the ones that are kind of floating around in my brain right now as possibilities to start on. And like I said, I am taking a break from the TBR jar challenge, but if I do end up reading something this month that counts toward one of the challenges, I'm just gonna go ahead and count it because I'm not pulling one out. So that's how that's gonna work. So that is it for my October wrap up and pseudo-November TBR. Hopefully I end up getting to at least one book this month because I am starting to get back into a reading mood, but if I don't, oh well. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite thing was that you read in October, and especially if you read something that really creeped you out in October, I would love to know about that. As always, I will leave links down in the description to my blog, Twitter, and Goodreads. Please add me as a friend on Goodreads. I would love to be friends with all of you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!